The story: Cracks in the Marriage. Sarah and John had been married for 8 years. They were a seemingly perfect couple in the eyes of others. They had fallen in love in college, built their careers together, and raised 2 well-behaved children. But one evening, when the bedroom door closed, Sarah began to feel something was missing. It wasn't the first time she'd felt this way, but this time, the feeling was stronger than ever. John no longer seemed like the man she had married. He came home later, spoke less, and his nights out with friends stretched into the early morning hours. Sarah couldn't help but notice the strange signs. John's shirt smelled of a different perfume. His phone calls were always short and ended abruptly when she walked into the room, and he was often absent on nights with no clear explanation. All of Sarah's suspicions were confirmed one weekend afternoon, when she accidentally discovered a text message on John's phone. The message was from a woman named Emily, making plans to meet him the following evening. Sarah stared at the screen, her heart sinking. She didn't confront John right away. Instead, she quietly tucked away all of her hurt feelings. The next day, Sarah decided it was time to face the truth. She asked John about Emily, and when he couldn't deny it, she felt the pain spread through every word she spoke. John didn't offer many excuses, only admitting that he had been lost in a fog for some time, and hadn't realized how far he had gone. Sarah felt like the world had collapsed beneath her. She still loved John, but in that moment, she realized that her self-respect could no longer endure the hurt. She didn't want to be the woman standing behind a relationship that wasn't whole. A few weeks later, they sat down together to talk about everything that had happened. John said he was sorry, but Sarah knew that, whether she forgave him or not, the cracks in their marriage could never fully heal. She decided to leave, not because she didn't love him anymore, but because she understood that a relationship could only survive when there was mutual respect and honesty. The story of Sarah and John is a reminder that marriage, no matter how beautiful, can't avoid challenges. And when one person in the relationship stops valuing the basic foundations, everything begins to fall apart. The story: Betrayal in Plain Sight. Emily and Jake had been married for 5 years, and to the outside world, they seemed like the perfect couple. They were both successful, Emily as a marketing executive, Jake as a lawyer, and had built a beautiful life together in a cozy home just outside the city. They had no children yet, but their plan was always to start a family soon. Emily loved Jake deeply. He was kind, funny, and they had a strong connection, or so she thought. Emily had a best friend named Claire, whom she had known since college. Claire was like a sister to her, someone she could confide in about everything, her dreams, her fears, even the small frustrations about her marriage. Jake got along with Claire too. The 3 of them would often meet up for dinners or weekend outings. It was a friendship that Emily valued deeply, never suspecting that it might one day be the source of her greatest pain. Lately, though, something felt off. Emily couldn't put her finger on it, but there were small things that caught her attention. Jake was coming home later than usual. His phone always seemed to be locked when he used it, and he had become distant, almost preoccupied. She brushed it off as work stress, but the feeling of unease began to grow. One Friday night, Emily was staying late at work, and Jake had planned to meet up with Claire for a drink. It wasn't unusual for them to go out, but when Emily returned home that evening, she noticed something strange. Jake's car was in the driveway, but his phone was sitting on the kitchen counter, face up. Emily, still trying to quell the growing feeling of suspicion, glanced at the screen. The name Claire flashed on the screen. There were 2 missed calls, and a message that read, "I can't stop thinking about you. Please don't shut me out." Emily froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The message was from Claire, her best friend. She felt like the floor had been ripped out from beneath her. Her mind raced, trying to process what she was seeing. It couldn't be true. Claire and Jake. It didn't make sense. Claire was her confidant, her closest friend. Emily didn't confront Jake immediately. Instead, she waited for him to return, her thoughts spiraling in a whirlpool of doubt and disbelief. When he finally walked in, she asked, trying to keep her voice steady, "Jake, why is Claire sending you messages like that?" Jake froze, his face pale. He looked like a man caught in the act, and in that moment, he knew there was no way out. "I can explain," he stammered. "It wasn't supposed to happen, Emily. I never meant for you to find out like this. But I've been seeing Claire. It's been going on for a while." Emily could barely breathe. Her vision blurred with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She had always trusted Jake. She had trusted Claire. But now, both of them had betrayed her in the worst possible way. It started as something innocent. Jake continued, his voice filled with regret. "But we got closer. Things happened. I never meant to hurt you. I swear." Emily stared at him, her mind a storm of emotions, anger, confusion, and heartbreak. She had trusted both of them, shared her thoughts, her vulnerabilities, with Claire, and now this. The betrayal wasn't just from her husband, it was from her best friend, someone she had let into the deepest parts of her life. "I don't even know who you are anymore," Emily whispered, her voice breaking. "How could you do this to me?" To Urs, Jake reached out to her, but she pulled away. She couldn't even look at him. "I need you to leave," she said quietly, though her heart was screaming. "I need space to think. Just go." As Jake left the room, Emily sat there, alone, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her chest. Her mind couldn't comprehend how the people she trusted most had destroyed everything. She had lost more than just her husband. She had lost her closest friend, too. In the weeks that followed, Emily tried to pick up the pieces of her life. She talked to Claire once, but it was clear there was no going back. Claire apologized profusely, but Emily couldn't bring herself to forgive her. The damage was too deep, the trust too shattered. Jake tried to reconcile, begging for another chance. But Emily knew in her heart that a relationship built on lies could never be repaired. She couldn't continue living in a world where the people she loved most had betrayed her in such an intimate, personal way. In the end, Emily decided to leave the house and move to a smaller apartment, far away from the life she had built with Jake and Claire. She focused on her career and took time to heal, though she knew it would take years to rebuild the trust she had lost, not just in others, but in herself. The story of Emily, Jake, and Claire is a stark reminder that betrayal can come from the places we least expect. And sometimes, the hardest part of moving on isn't just letting go of the people who hurt us, but learning to trust again.